Okay, online with me here I got Pete Netzel, who is one heck of a researcher, him and his wife, and they've written them books putting their research together. Anyways, I did another video with Pete, and I don't know if it was because of that video or not, or because of his books, or both, but the Travel Channel got a hold of him and wanted him to help them find a treasure deal they was working on. And so, Pete, man, tell me about that.
Well, we had done this previous video interview about the research we were doing on these books. And about that time, I had been contacted off of posting these even shorter versions of the treasure stories and maps on TNet. And so I just didn't bring it up that I'd been contacted by somebody about this one particular lost treasure when we did the first interview. Okay, so that was kind of playing in the background when we had interviewed last time. And so what I'd do was I'd go post on TNet a shorter version of a story with a map. And anyway, I seen some people talking about some Custer one, and I thought, well, I got that done in my book. And so I slapped some of that out there with a map. And it was later I got this private message like, where did I get a hold of that info? And basically, by researching out the story, And so, anyway, at first I thought it was somebody pulling my leg. And I remember thinking, nah, don't reply to it right away. And just think it over, because I probably would have told them something they wouldn't have liked, And so I just waited a while and then replied as a normal person would do. I react more, like that.
Yeah.
So I just held back on doing that. But anyway, we swapped phone numbers, and I call, and here it's somebody in California. And then they wanted a teleconference with the producer of this show. So then they asked, where did you get this info? And I said, from a lot of books, a lot of reading. And I remember reading something on Captain Marsh's logbook. So I figured out from that logbook where they more than likely, I believe, buried that treasure. That was that gold from the far west that these teamsters brought onto the boat.
So can you quickly tell about that story, what that story is, of what happened, or is that part of what you're going to be telling?
Well, okay, I'll go into it a bit. So anyway, out of this far west, this river boat that was signed up for the campaign to help the military out, it would bring up feed for the horses, ferry troops, and all this. Terry, Gibbon, and Custer would have their meetings on the deck of the Far West. And so as the campaign continued, they were working their way, and they got into Montana. And there was supposed to be all three columns converge and trap the Sioux and Northern Cheyenne and force them back on the reservation. And instead, Custer decides to do it on his own and gets wiped out. But while this riverboat's going up the Bighorn River, they see some people in a wagon, and it's freighters from Bozeman, and they have all this gold that was being shipped from Bozeman, supposedly to North Dakota, to Bismarck. So the area is infested with hostiles. They ask Marsh to bring on the gold on the ship. He does. They try to make it back. They apparently get killed and never make it back to Bozeman. So anyway, later they find out Custer's wiped out. They have to take Reno and Bentine's wounded to Fort Abraham Lincoln. And during that period, as they prepared the ship, the gold got took off board and buried. So anyway, My story was all based on this Captain Marsh's logbook, and I had the story done in 2006.
Ah.
So that's 12 years ago. This was one
And this
that,
story made it in your book, right?
and
This
so we
it was in
plan
your
to put it
book.
in the book. So anyway, we created a map using topo maps and all that, and that was in our book. Back when Custer Country, the first edition, was only like 105 pages. Really small book, the second one in the Montana series. And so I get contacted. I'm on a teleconference, and on my topo map, there's this Fairfield School. And so, well, of course, the school didn't exist during the time of the war with the Sioux and Custer and that. So they call me back, email me back, that they found the Fairview School was almost on the North Dakota border. And I laughed. I go, you must have tried looking it up on Google. You know? I said, you won't find that school on Google. It only shows up on topo maps. And it probably hadn't had a class in it since 1920. You know? And so, anyway, I told them according to Google, how to get to the site of that school using Google Maps. And so they figured that out because they wanted that for their permit for digging that they'd have to get. So anyway, there was a whole bunch of emails exchanged. There was a release that came, and oh yeah, you had to have 3 changes of clothes. You couldn't have anything white, red, black, patterns, stripes, no logos, stuff like that. I got one itchy throat. So anyway, bear with me. So anyway, I didn't know if I'm going to get paid anything for this or not. I got to take a day off of work. There was some phrase in the beginning of it, beginning paragraph of valuable consideration. Okay?
Yeah.
What's valuable consideration? I don't know. What you got any idea?
I don't know.
My wife's looking like, yeah, he's tipping him again. I need that itchy throat. So anyway, I had asked him when I finally met him, oh, that's just some lawyer's term, valuable consideration. So I give up a day of work for this thing, and I don't get paid nothing. Okay?
Right.
Now the only way this is going to benefit me is we do books. Okay?
Yeah. So
if I can
get
flip
your name
this
out for the
around,
books, and
huh?
so yeah, if it gets your name out for the books and all that stuff.
If I can flip this around into marketing,
yeah,
then I might have got something out of it. Okay? But so that there was like a dozen or more emails, a dozen or more phone calls. And so the last week, now believe it or not, this thing ends up being stressful for me. Okay? First off, I figure I'm going to get in trouble for work by not being there.
Right.
You know, even though I had all this vacation time they wouldn't give me. But anyway, they decided the last week, oh, do you know 2 guys that can come and sit at this round table breakfast thing at an area restaurant that know about this treasure? Okay?
Yeah.
Well, I work so much, I really don't know anyone. The only people I knew were a couple people in the Beartooth Prospectors Club, which says metal detecting, but they're mostly go searching for gold.
Uh-huh.
Okay? And so flour gold, the little nuggets
Right.
from their claim. So anyway, I give Tom a call, and he goes, "Yeah, me and Brett will do it." And so, and he ends up not giving me Brett's number so that the person from the Travel Channel could contact him, but yet it's his best friend, and we never got a working number for Tom, which is kind of strange. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so one night, 2 nights before this, I call Tom, and he tells me, because he doesn't use the internet, and he found this. This is how it happened. I found it on Google, how the gold came to be on the far west. And he's telling me this big story of these gold bars loaded on at Williston, North Dakota. So anyway, I said, Tom, that's the Emil Schumacher version from 1968. It never happened, because Williston, North Dakota didn't exist yet. So anyway, then the day came where we're down to this restaurant. But how I learned this Schumacher story, and this Roy Norville. Yeah, the Schumacher is the Lost Treasures and How to Find Them. 1968, Emil Schumacher. One story in here. They sent me Travel Channel sent me a PDF of the story in here about that gold. And then Treasure Seekers Treasury by Roy Norville. They sent me a PDF of the one story in this book about how that gold came to be there. Interestingly enough, Roy Norville has a book out on giants.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So I thought, well, I got these 2 PDFs. There's time. I'll order both books. They were cheap off Amazon. Okay?
Uh-huh.
I figured there's got to be something in here in these stories I need to learn. And what I learned was they were complete trash. I'm serious. These stories are so bad. This one, the gold bar is loaded on at Williston. The battle was 1876, and Williston was founded in 1887. So, combined with the H.G. Wells time machine story, it is possible.
So that's what's really important about, treasure hunting or anything like that. Your research is 95% of it. If your research is wrong, if you're not looking at the facts and checking history and seeing that it jives, then your research isn't right if it doesn't jive. And that's what you do, Pete. That's what I like about you and your wife, is you guys search it till it jives.
1968. If I would have came across this book when I was in high school, I'd have ate this stuff up.
Oh yeah, a lot of people have.
I would. It's good reading book, but if you really get into the story, then you start to see what's wrong.
Yeah.
There's scouts named in here that never showed up anywhere else ever.
Really?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things. This book here, some of it actually lined up with what I found. Except the author put a map in the book. And the map happened to have both the Little Bighorn and the Bighorn rivers flowing side by side all the way down to the Yellowstone River, when actually one flows into the other and then down to the Yellowstone River. But it had Hardin, Montana on the Yellowstone River when it's like, 50, 60 miles away. So anyway, that ended that. But apparently, that's all people had to go on for years.
Yes.
That was the bulk of it right there. So anyway, we're at this breakfast thing, and Tom is sitting here, and Brett's sitting here. But before that, they decide to order breakfast for all the crew, the camera people and all that. And the rest of us had to wait so that they could eat and then get up and
so they could
be
film you,
filming us eating. So I'm sitting there, and anyway, I'm telling Tom, yeah, I don't even know the name of this show. You know that you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They weren't telling me the name of the show. I said, we're at a restaurant. It must be a cooking show. I was making jokes. I was having fun, you know. But anyway, finally we get our orders, and then those kind of got screwed up. So my food was sitting over there, and I knew it, but the lady thought it was someone else's. So it was kind of hilarious. And anyway, we're there. Tom's here. Brett's there. I'm here. Our two treasure hunters are sitting here. And they start this off with, so how did that gold get there? You know, to be where it's at. And I'm sitting there, and Tom and Brett are just going away, you know? And I'm just sitting there thinking, geez. And I let them go and go and go. And finally, Tom's telling about these gold bars loaded on at Williston. And so finally I interrupt. I go, Tom, that story's a spin-off of that Emil Schumacher story from '68. There are no gold bars. It never happened. Williston didn't exist. And looking back after the fact, I could see where Tom got ticked off. You know what I mean?
He got mad at you for correcting him for the Travel Channel show, huh?
Yeah, corrected on camera.
Yeah.
But I told him 2 days ahead of time this didn't happen. You know? So anyway, this is really good here. So I go over both books. What's wrong with them? And I said, my book's based on Captain Marsh logbook, and about them taking it, Marsh and two crewmen in this two-wheeled cart and taking it off the boat. And it was they thought it was a game trail. It was dark. It's turning dark. They could see a ridge to the northwest. And so they're going to try to find a cave or a hole to put it in. And right there, sitting next to me, Tom's going, it couldn't be done. The axle would have broke on the cart. And all this, you know. And I mean, I asked you, I got you on the damn show, and now you're trying to cut me apart.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of funny. It was all the things why it couldn't happen. And I said, well, I figured out kind of what, 300,000 in gold, $20 an ounce. What are you sitting at? 951 pounds of gold or something?
Yeah.
And so anyway, he was telling me it was called a steward's card or something, and I go, well, when I looked online at pictures of the time period looking for pictures of these carts, I'd see on Google all these pictures of steamboats and riverboats, and the cart I kept seeing over and over was called a Mormon hand cart. Okay? And so, you know, those were used long before 1876. And so I said, you heard of immigrant trains where these wagon trains went out west? I said they had whole handcart companies where people left the Midwest and made it all the way to Salt Lake City using these handcarts. And I said, I figure if they can make it all halfway across the continent, 1 or 2 miles probably ain't going to be a problem. You know? So, anyway, afterwards, someone, when I was telling them about this, they said, because I used that word Mormon, you know, that was bad, you know. Well, that's what the cart was called. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay? It's a little different when you're addressing a people or a group of people in the modern era. But back then, that's what that type of cart was.
That was the physical name of the cart, huh?
Yeah.
Ah.
So, but the funny thing when Tom was telling his story of how that gold got there, I mean, in the battle, Custer battle, we had the Crow Nation, we had the Northern Cheyenne, we had the Sioux, and everyone, when he refers to them, he's calling them Indians, 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 and half the restaurant's full of Native American families having breakfast. So I'm thinking, yeah, I would love that still in the show, but I bet you that one gets cut there too. You know? So anyway, there's all sorts of interesting things, behind the scene things. So anyway, after this, before they started filming outside, Tom goes, I forgot my vial of gold. And so he had this little vial that had his gold in it. And anyway, he probably had $300 worth, but he forgot it at home. But Brett had a Ziploc bag. And so he had all this fine gold dust and little pickers in it.
Uh-huh.
And so he pulls that out. And the two treasure hunters look at it. And anyway, they said to Brett, did you find all that? Oh, just the fine stuff. The pickers I won at the club meetings. So that was kind of humorous too, So anyway, these were my experts I was able to pull in. Because I really don't know anyone out here, you know what I mean? I could have got a guy I used to work for that sold gold and silver bullion. He'd have had more value to the show by converting what the value was then by the price per ounce with what the current weight was, which would be able to tell us how many millions is this worth today.
Yeah.
He'd have had some more value, to have on the show. Anyway, after a while they asked how many of us had been to the location. And so the Travel Channel, I thought it got quiet. I thought I almost heard a gasp when they heard none of us have. Not a one. And here, you're all the way out from California. And who's out here to help you who's never been there?
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, huh?
Yeah.
But it really gets good here. Because anyway, I haven't been there, but I don't need to. I do my research. We do our stories. I do my maps on Google and Topo Maps on my laptop sitting in front of my TV. I said, I've never been there, but if you want me to lead when we leave here, I'll take you right out to the location. I know where I made my map for it.
Yeah.
And so, well, what I didn't know was they were already there. They were out there. And actually, when I think back a week before, they're calling me, yeah, we're trying to find the Fairfield School. And I said, well, it probably ain't there no more. Back then, those little schools, they moved them to where the kids were that would use them. So we drive out there, and Tom and Brett, well, they were done for the day because they were just for the breakfast filming. And so we're out there at the site, and we pull over to where this school once sat. On the way before we got there, there's one place called Grant Marsh Lane, named after this little lane named after the captain of that riverboat. So we're at where the school was, and we're out of the cars and we're filming. And anyway, the director, we're talking about this and that, and I say, well, the school doesn't have nothing to do with what you're out here for. It was just on the map. It's a reference point.
Right. So
here they, leading the way, the director and all that, went to the school site. And as I said, the only thing that's good for is finding maybe some old coins. But it has nothing to do with the story.
Yeah.
It's a reference point. And so, anyway, so then we get in the vehicles. He said travel order of travel, follow me, and we go down to the river, and we're out of the vehicles, and they're filming again, talking about the far west coming up the Bighorn River, and he asks, well, where did it dock? You know?
Yeah.
And tie up, you know? Where'd the boat tie up?
Yep, that's an
And
important clue.
Not here. Not here. And he goes, well, what are we doing here? I go, you told us all to follow you. And so I pull out, I pull out my book, and I got it like this, my map. And so
show me the cover of your book. Show me the cover of your book real quick.
Yeah, so this is the Custer Country second edition. It's 305 pages. We tripled it with the second edition, putting more in. And so, yeah, the schoolhouse would have been here, but it didn't exist no more. So they took us down this road right here to the river. And I said, well, it didn't dock here. This ain't the place. I opened my book, and I lined it up, and I said, besides, the angle's wrong. What we want to do is get back out on the road and go 2 more roads, and we take a left at Foster. And so we did that. We come out on the river, and we're right at the General Custer fishing access. Okay?
Uh-huh.
And so, and you look upriver just a little ways, and there's the islands. And so this is the spot, because I told them when we were at that school, we got to go to where the start of the story from the map, you know.
Right.
That was the islands. Oh, something else to show you on the back of this Custer book. One second, we'll get you there. You see that?
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Huh?
Awesome. Yep, I see it.
What is that? The little people
Yep.
of the Priors?
Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there might be a better surprise coming yet. So anyway, that's part of the Custer story for that part of the country. So it's in here already. And so that's just a teaser, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, we get out there, and I'm telling them the story. And of these 2 treasure hunters, one thinks he could load all that gold on a 2-wheel cart, and he called it like a Mexican carreta, he called it. And he could move all that gold that far by himself. The other one didn't think it could be done.
And these 2 treasure hunters, they're brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, the older one's the nicer one of the 2. He talked better to you, you know what I mean? So I liked him better. Ain't like I'm going to run into him, huh? So, anyway, yeah, he felt it could be done. So we're walking down the road, and they wanted to go, the older one wanted to go detect around these rocks. Well, they got some permission from some rancher that's up in the northwest corner of my map. And there was some rocks that stuck up, and they were separated from that ridge. So we go there to hunt. They're swinging the detectors around a bit, around these rocks, and dig a few holes. Find a couple beer cans. No big signals of gold. But when they were talking to this rancher, he ended up signing a release for him too, and they filmed him. And anyway, he told him his mother lived to be 96, and at the end she was all excited about the gold that's supposed to be buried around their property. And so he said they bought her some books, and he read one of these books, and here's Captain Marsh's logbook in it.
Hmm.
And I was standing right there when he said it, and I go, "You just made my day," you know.
Because that's where
So
you based your story off of the actual logbook, not these treasure stories, but the logbook.
and here, my map, their land is right up in the corner of my map, and we end up there, and he tells about this logbook, and then he tells about other people. Every 5, 10, 15 years, there's people coming around there hunting. He tells about 2 guys that had construction equipment, and they tore part of the bluff off, thinking the gold was there. Then he told the story of some guy that came by train, got a team and wagon, and went up on the other side of the river to some creek and went way up in there, and he was gone a week, and when he come back, his wagon's all loaded down, and nobody knew what he had, so they figured it has to be the gold. And I'm standing there hearing that, and I'm thinking, well, geez, Thomas Terry had the location for the gold on the other side of the river, and I said, if that made a newspaper article, that's how he did his research, and that's probably why he placed it over there.
Yeah.
And so we were hearing the story that to me fit with what Terry had come up with.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting that way. They were now this is on Monday, they're still filming the rest of the week out there. So Monday was the day I was done with them. They were going to go back to the drone, because this rancher told them there used to be an old wagon road. And supposedly that's the wagon road that these guys, the freighters, used to bring the gold to the boat.
Ah.
So, from the river towards that ranch, everything's been tilled and planted for a lot of years, probably 100 years. So they were going to use a drone to go on the further out and try to find traces of that wagon road. But the rancher did say that 100 years ago, the river was a lot closer to his ranch. So, and that every year it keeps working further to the east, the eastern bluffs. So, well, if 100 years ago the distance was even less, the likelihood this story is even more true is even better, too. So, anyway, yeah, I looked forward to it at first, this Travel Channel thing. Then it got to be stress. I thought I would at least get my book on that show. And that kind of got kiboshed at that breakfast thing. I was that close to getting up and saying bye-bye. No, honestly, that's how I felt. You know? I did honestly feel that way. Because after all, I'm giving up a day's pay and stuff like that. And so, anyway, my personal opinion, they weren't very prepared for coming out there. You know what I mean?
Well, I think
and
they was
the area on their own.
Yeah, they was probably did a little bit of research on the stuff that was out there, not knowing about the logbook and all that stuff, and so they was headed the wrong direction, and you got them steered the right direction. It sounds like to me. So.
Well, the thing is, the people from that show, they bought a Kindle of that book ahead of time. And apparently they didn't bother to familiarize themselves with it much more than the directors.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, when you do maps at that scale, any maps you could buy anywhere, just they're worthless, because the scale I'm doing is even more in depth and stuff. So, like that little place called Foster showing up on that topo map, in real life, on a road map, that don't show up on the state road maps. And all you're going to see is Foster on a little road sign.
Yeah.
So that was it on that. So, Anyway, would I want to do that again? I don't know. Maybe it'd be easier knowing what you're getting into. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the main reason I watch any of them treasure hunting shows is you get to see somewhere else in the country and scenery and all that, and maybe hear the historical story behind it.
Right.
But that was about it here, you know. So, anyway, I didn't expect that they were going to find any treasure. In fact, with the size of the topo map that I had and the area that it covered, I remember one of these two guys saying, well, it would take two people a year or more to hunt.
Uh-huh.
And, well, I knew that. Yeah, to adequately cover that would take two of you, probably 2 years. But I mean, what were you expecting?
Yeah.
An X on the map?
Yeah.
You know, I gave you the... For me and my book, we did. It was awesome. Actually, the directors were real thankful at the end because they got their footage. They had people right there saying that they knew about or hearing about this gold buried on their property.
Yeah.
And all that. So they were real happy that turned out. Because basically it took them right onto a site that people had been going into that area all the time. And I never knew that.
Yeah.
I'd never been to it. So, but otherwise, the map I did and the book I did, that worked out perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, the history was there. But anyway, when I had said at that breakfast thing about, yeah, I make these maps, Brett goes, I'll swear to his maps. Because we had done one other story in another part of Montana, and it was for Midiger County, and it was this Almenzo Jurgen story, and it's the most plagiarized story out there for Montana. Over and over, the story is told, almost word for word for word for word. Well, to cover all of Montana, we're doing the story. But what we came up with was the death certificate information for this guy, showing he did live, when he was born, his family members. We also came up with the homestead patent, because he's supposed to have maybe up to 100,000 in gold coins buried on the property. And so, anyway, when Brett says, I'll swear to his maps, Brett told about this story and that we put the homestead patent in, rather not me, but my wife.
Right.
And he found a website where he was able to type in that homestead patent, and the map I made for my book was, boom, a hit.
Huh.
And he was able to find the property owner, current property owner. He called that guy up. So him and a couple of people could go check it out, and they got denied the permission to go on the property to search. But part of the land was Bureau of Land Management, but the private property surrounds the BLM section.
Uh-huh.
So they won't even give them access into the BLM. And so Brett was telling that at that breakfast table. It's being filmed, whether it's in the show or not.
Right.
And Brett's saying that, and I go, the guy knows what he's sitting on. You know. So, anyway, yeah, Brett vouched for those maps because of that one
Cool.
story.
Cool.
And that's when I said about my books. I said, yeah, we got 7 books. We got over 2,900 pages of stories. We got over 100 plus lost treasures, all covered in Montana. And almost every one of them have gotten maps, because some of them are vague enough you can't put a map to, but I said, there's all that. The books are more than just books. I said, a person could, if they wanted to try to find a treasure, these things are pretty researched out. That's a good starting point for them in these books. Or if a family wants to has a book and take a ride and have a picnic lunch, they can go to a spot where history happened. It's just a day trip,
that's good. Yeah, that's a good thought.
I said the books are several things. They're not just treasure hunting. They're actually, it's like people can go have a day trip, a road trip, an adventure. They can go to all these places. So anyway, I thought the book turned out pretty good for what they were wanting.
Yeah. So I know when you called me about it after it was all over, you just kept on saying it's these two brothers, and they had something to do with the Lost Dutchman. They were from Arizona, and so I kind of guessed who I thought they had to be because I'd interviewed their dad before, or who I thought had to be their dad, and I guess it turned out I was right. But
yeah, so they didn't want to use their names. The filming crew called them the brothers. Tom was talking to one the day before, or before the filming, inside the restaurant. So they're talking about mining laws and stuff like that, and I just figured I'll let them talk, Well, Tom picked up a bit of info, and see, anyway, this Tom guy was really something else, but I called him the next one day, and he said, yeah, I said they're going to go out there with a drone. And Tom goes, well, what are they going to do with that? And I go, well, they're looking for traces of the old wagon road. And so he grumbled, and then he said, my stories were all rehashed stories. And I said, rehashed? If you look at Penfield and Jameson and all them authors and count up how many stories really have been covered in books, I think it might be a dozen or 15 max if you include all these other past authors. And I got over 100, so
yeah,
mine are rehashed. It's hilarious, So anyway, yeah. It was, I figured he was probably ticked off for being corrected on that Travel Channel, but it was like, those guys, because I remember when I cut him off and corrected him, even the younger treasure hunter says, yeah, I don't put no weight in that story at all, So it was pretty funny, But, yeah. So anyway, I called Tom back. I go, Tom, was that mine he was referring to, the Lost Dutchman? And Tom goes, yeah. But when I talked to you, you said right away the name of the brothers. And then Tom said, yeah, they had a show. It was called Ice Cold Gold. So I Googled that, and there two of them were, So anyway, it's just strange looking back, So I didn't say the name of the show yet, did I?
You haven't.
No, one of them actually, I think, might have told me that, because I kept saying, I don't even know the name of this show. What's the show supposed to be called? Finally, I think one of them told me. So, anyway,
what's the name of the show, man? I want to wait when it comes out and see you on it.
Do you want to know the name of the show?
Yeah.
Or you don't want me to wreck it for you, do you?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to miss it, though.
You want me to name it? I'll name it.
It's up to you.
Lost Gold is what they told me it was, unless they just made up a name.
Lost Gold, and it's on the Travel Channel, and it's the two brothers are traveling around looking for lost gold. That's what the basis of the story is. Checking out old stories around the country.
I guess. I don't know. So, apparently that's it. you know. But yeah, I could imagine filming all day with them, but yet they're out there for 6 days. I'll probably only be on 10 minutes of it, you know. So
probably not. That's they're filming 6 days for a 30-minute show, so you might only be on a minute of it.
It's an hour show.
Oh, it's an hour show. Okay.
Yeah, it's an hour.
Well, an hour show, but man, they got probably 15 to 20 minutes of commercials on it, probably.
Yeah. yeah, I bet you they do. The only thing I didn't like on the filming is my hair was too white, so they made me wear someone's hat.
Oh.
And I think the hat made me look stupid and stuff, you know. I hated that hat. But anyway, I'm old now. I feel old and move around like I'm old. This was bad.
You know, it's interesting that they contacted you for that exact show, because I don't even remember who it was. I get all the emails all the time for wanting to information for this TV show or that TV show or that, and I don't know that much. It's the people I interview that knows everything. But anyways, I was contacted by one of these producers for that exact treasure. So I don't know if it had to deal with this, because I have a video out there where I interviewed a guy who owned some property near where the Custer's last battle took place, and he tells some stories that was passed down to him of some things that was found and what happened to some of the treasure there. And so they contacted me wanting to know if I knew about the story you dealt with, but I really didn't know anything about that story, I just told them you'd be better off finding somebody else.
Well, the thing is, so that they contacted you on the gold from the far west?
I don't know. I don't even know who it was that contacted me, but oh yeah, for the gold on the far west, they contacted me specifically for that. Yeah, but I didn't know anything about that, and they contacted me because of that video I did of Henry, who has property near where the Bighorn battle was, the little Bighorn battle was, and so, but that's the only thing I knew about is what Henry was told me in my interview with him, so.
Yeah, the whole thing's hilarious. They kind of get a hold of me then, and I take them out to somewhere I've never been.
No, but you had the research, though, the things to back it up, the log book, which is where everybody should really start, because that's where the truth of it is, is on the log book.
That's the point. I didn't have the log book no more. I had read it and used it and made my story back in 2006.
Right.
I don't know where I've seen it anymore. I don't remember. And so my whole story, I had recorded this thing way back then. This story was done, 12 years ago? And it got held on to and finally put in a book. So I didn't have the source anymore, and we end up on a property where someone's telling about reading Captain Marsh's logbook. So that was the irony of it all,
Yep.
So.
Hey, so Pete, I know before the last interview you did for me, you gave us a free book. Can you give us that same free book again for the guys that?
My wife wants the other free book to end first. He's talking about this one, possibly.
No, the same one you gave us before. Can you give it to us again?
Oh, the title of that?
Yeah, can you give us can we get that free book again? For the guys that never seen your other video.
The same one that was in the other video is still up. It's free for Amazon Prime Kindle, and it's called Gold West Country Volume 2 from the Lost Treasures of Montana series. Now, did you ever put Yellowstone Country and Custer Country on your storefront?
I probably haven't yet, but I need to do that.
Yeah, so out of the Lost Treasures of Montana, 7 volumes, if you buy them from Terry's store, I still get my royalty, but Amazon does a little kickback for Terry. And what we going to plan on here down the road yet? We want to do an actual lost treasure story video?
Yeah. I'd like to take one of your stories and just have it go through the whole thing so everybody can go out there and look for it and give the clues and everything so everybody's got it. And maybe hopefully somebody will go out there and chime in and tell us what they found and what they found while they was looking at it and how it lined up for your research lining up with what they found.
I got a guy that got killed by renegade Nez Pierce's returning. They were part of Chief Joseph's group that tried to make it to Canada.
Uh-huh.
And when Chief Joseph was caught and he surrendered and said, "I will fight no more," well, some of them did make it to Canada. And they came back trying to get back into their homelands in Idaho. And on the way through Granite County, Montana, they had killed a few miners, and there was this one miner who had his cache of his gold dust around his cabin site. Now, this is a story that has been known for years. And Thomas P. Terry had it in his United States Treasure Atlas. And it was a very brief mention on this story. That's the story I'd like to do when we do our next video. And it'll be the Lost Treasure story. The whole video on this one cache by this miner.
Okay.
And it happened southwest of Phillipsburg. But the story's always been out there. But we've narrowed it down and know the gulch the guy mined in, where his cabin was, and where he was killed.
Wow.
Which really narrows down the hunt for his gold.
Yep.
And so that's what I'd like to do. I have it half wrote out for you already.
Awesome.
And so I think that story's called Murdered by Renegades.
Awesome.
So we'll do that one.
Okay.
And then I think progress is still continuing on a book that Terry wants us to research out. And,
I just want to say that, when I found out how you guys are researching, I mean, you guys are going above and beyond with your research. You're coming up with things that I didn't think was possible to come up with. So when I found that out about you, I asked you guys to do some research for me on some things, and you're working on it.
Yeah, are you going to tell them what it is?
Go ahead, tell them.
We haven't picked a name for this book because we're waiting on you.
Oh, well, till I see all of it, I don't know what to name it. But it's.
How about I'm looking over this laptop to that laptop. How about Here Before Us, Giants and Little People?
Yeah, I like that.
Huh? You like that?
Yeah.
It's up to you.
So my thing is, there's all these stories of giants and not a lot of stories about little people, but what people don't know is the giants and the little people would go hand in hand. They kind of commingled, but it's not known much about the little people. But there's all these stories of the giants, but there's no that they saying, oh, that was sensationalized reporting by the reporters back in the day. It's not real. These things aren't real. But you guys have gone and taken it and found things clear back into the 1700s and stuff. So I'm excited I'm excited.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I could imagine doing an interview on that.
Yeah.
I haven't even read the book yet. It's being worked on.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, yeah, it's being worked on. I've got double jobs. So right now, Wyoming's slowly getting worked on. Pretty much the full time is going into that book right now for you.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we'll see how that one develops.
Awesome.
But I guess if you got a giant little people crowd, there's something coming. So,
okay.
But don't forget this guy here, this Roy Norville. Anyway, he kicked out a book. It should be out on, I don't know how available his giant book on giants is, but I did see.
Check it out.
That's how I could tell anything about these authors, is I looked up what kind of books they wrote, and both of them only wrote one Lost Treasure story book. Their topics were scattered, but Roy Norville had done a giant book. So, anyway, that's about it here.
Awesome.
So,
Pete, man,
talk your ear off, huh?
I appreciate it, Pete.
So, yeah, we got this one out of the way. We've been trying for a couple weekends, and this or that would come up. Been sick for a while, and in some ways I probably ain't too happy with the Travel Channel, but I was just glad to knock it out of the way. Basically, they needed me there because I think once they got out into the area, they were kind of lost on it,
Yeah, sounds like it.
Well, I guess that's why they contact people, these shows for people for different areas all over.
Well, definitely it is. They want
Yeah.
a resident expert to help them get them into the right areas, to help them, find it. Anyway, so yeah, you're right.
Send them off on the right direction anyway.
Yep.
But other than that, they were real polite. They were professional. They were appreciative about taking the time to help them. The treasure hunters, it was such a rush to leave that I gave a proof copy of Custer Country to the older of the two treasure hunters, and he said he was going to send me a copy of his book.
Cool.
And I don't know if that was his book or his dad's book.
No, he wrote a book.
Yeah, but I didn't have any way to give him my address, and he goes, well, the Travel Channel has it, and I'm thinking, yeah, but they don't. They just have my phone number and email. But anyway, I'm so busy proofreading books, I probably won't have time to read it. But anyway, yeah, it was just an interesting experience. So anyway, I suppose that's it for this time.
All right, Pete, thank you. And that's a wrap.
Okay.
Thanks.